What's up out there? We've had Path of Exile 2 in early access for a little over 2 weeks now. I have got right at 80 hours, and you can see where I'm at on the mapping process. I basically just got started the other day. I struggled a lot through the campaign because I played Warrior, and I've struggled a lot with currency. I've struggled a lot with gearing up because of a lack of currency, lack of mobility with the Warrior. Like, there's been a whole bunch of issues. So in this video, I have some wish list items, some big major problem stuff that needs fixed, and some minor problem stuff that needs fixed, and then some balancing that I'd like to see. And the balancing portion is more me talking from a Warrior's perspective, so mileage may vary greatly in every other aspect of the game, but from a Warrior's perspective, I have some complaints. First and foremost, I think they need to add some kind of visual feedback that the charm is doing something, and I see a lot of other people mentioning that as well. You see that your flasks drop in charges, and you see them fill back up. You saw utility flasks in PoE 1 empty out and fill up, yet in charms, it's a complete step backward, and you don't get anything unless you mouse over it and see that there's charges. So first thing on my wish list is add some kind of visual feedback for your charms. Second thing, I'd like to be able to buy uncut skill gems. I don't want to have my inventory completely filled up with these things. I would like to buy them. I don't mind if they put a limitation on it. I think I've heard that the developer does not want to sell them. If I was to do it, I would not mind seeing that, like, tier 13 level, that's 13, right? It says level 14. I guess it's tier 13, whatever it is. I would not mind if they stopped here or stopped at 14 for the spirit ones or 3 for the support ones. I just want to be able to buy everything on this screen. In PoE 1, you could buy any skill. At a certain point in the game, you could buy every skill aside from the ones you had to find. In this game, you have no option to buy any skills unless you drop it, and I think that's unfortunate. I would like to be able to at least buy, like I said, buy down to here, and it doesn't have to be in the campaign, but once you hit mapping, I would like to be able to buy any of these. Number one, I don't want to have to keep all these uncut gems in my inventory. Number two, it's nice to be able to just go try other skills out. Maybe I want to try something, and I don't want to have to go find all these uncut ones. Let me just try stuff out. That's how PoE 1 operated. I think it would be fine to add these. I don't think it's like breaking progression or anything. And I've got a big stack of them, but I would like to not have a big stack of them and just be able to purchase them as needed. So I would like to be able to purchase them. And then to piggyback off of that, I guess I shouldn't have closed that out, I want a button that toggles, and I've seen other people ask for this too, that toggles the gem cutting window. And I want 3 tabs on it. I want a tab for skill gems, a tab for support gems, and a tab for the spirit ones, the buffs or whatever they call them. I want 3 tabs on here so I want a button to get this screen brought up and then tabs to go between them. Here's the thing. This is the screen one of the screens that you plan your build from, whether it's the passive tree or the ascendancy or skill gems or gear or inventory or things like that. Like, all of these screens provide information, and you cannot get this if you don't have a skill gem. There's been times where I haven't had buff gems and stuff like that, or a skill gem, so I wasn't able to actually look at skills, and I'm like, okay, what do I have? What do I want? For planning purposes, for build purposes, I just want to be able to buy them and have a button to look at all this different stuff. Oh, there was one thing that a fleeting thought came in there as I was working up my build, the ascendancy. One thing I'd like to see them have is show the ascendancy here. If you're going to play a warrior, you're going to have one of 3 ascendancies. It would be nice to have like a little button to switch between them, because again, for build planning, because you can do this in PoB. PoB just has it off to the side. It'll show all 3 of these. Now, they don't have the PoB for PoE 2 yet, but in PoE 1, PoB, a lot of letters there, you can actually see all 3 ascendancies. I'd like to see a toggle here Until you make your ascendancy choice, you can actually switch between them and see what options there are. That way you can make a more informed decision as you're working up your build and selecting all your stuff and what you want to go to. Once you've selected the ascendancy, you're locked into it and you're going to have the ability to see what's there. So I'd like to have the ability to see have the option of seeing the ascendancy. That's like wish list stuff there. Problems. Let's talk about problems. The game crashes far too much. If you need a potential solution, swapping from DirectX to Vulkan may solve the issue. Somebody told me that. I immediately set it and then promptly got more crashes. Now, there have been some hotfixes in between when I set that and when I got crashes, so maybe the hotfix reverted it. When I sat down to do this video today, I was back to DirectX. So I've set it to Vulkan. It's recorded in this video that it is set to Vulkan, so it's peace of mind for me. But the amount of crashes that I've had, I don't know that it's specific to certain maps. Like I had a lot of crashing over here. I don't know if it's, I don't remember which maps it was, like sulfuric caverns, sump, seepage, steppe, decay. I don't know if it was any of these in particular. I know in this area I had a lot of crashing. I need to pay attention. Is it always on sulfuric caverns or something like that? I don't know. But I need to pay attention to that. Maybe it just crashes out of the blue after it's played for a while. But what will happen is if I was playing, say, seepage, I would crash and I would have to go back to desktop, reload the game, go back in, use my portal. So now I've wasted a portal, I've wasted time. And then I have to remap out the entire map because you lose all the mini-map progress, all the fog of war comes back. And now you have no idea where you're at. So if you got a good piece of loot out there, which I had to go find something the other day, it's just gone and you got to go figure out where it's at and you just lose so much. So the crashing needs to be fixed. I did get some crashing in the campaign, but it actually kept me where I was. But when you crash in mapping, it sends you back to town. I've crashed during bosses too, and you have to redo the entire boss fight. Even when I beat the boss and was done and was fighting some ads after it, it crashed and I had to redo the entire boss fight. That sucked. And that was in the campaign. This crashing business needs solved pronto. I know they're out on vacation, but man, that sucks. The next is bugs with this little sidebar on the warrior. So if I go into the mapping section and I select a map, I come over here and I hold the control key down and click, it doesn't do anything. If I move it one over and control click there, it swaps it in. Something's bugged with this thing and it doesn't let you control click into the waypoint or into the mapping part. Now, that said, if I come over here, I can control click back and forth and it works fine. It moves everything over, no problem. I can throw armor in, it moves over. I can throw crafting materials in and it no longer works. So there's some weird issues with control click on this thing. Also, but wait, there's more. When you come back from a mapping session and you go talk to Doriani to identify things, it will identify everything in this main section over here and it will identify nothing in this section. So you have to go get rid of a bunch of stuff, move this stuff out of here over into here, and then it will identify stuff. So there's a lot of problems with this little box and it's kind of annoying. I will add that I started off into Ancestral Empowerment. Somebody told me hulking form would be better, so I swapped over. Then I thought I want to respec back over into Ancestral Empowerment and see how that felt compared to this. So I wanted to go back and forth. You cannot spec out of Colossal Capacity. So by default, problem number one, when you spec into this, this is not expanded out. This is how it is. So as you're going along looting, you will put items in that little sidecar and you don't know it. So you go to respec out of it and you're like, why can't I remove this? Everything else removed, but that one. So I looked it up online and people said it was because this thing wasn't showing and you had items in it. Okay, cool. So you expand this, you take the items out, then you have to actually log out and back in again because it still thinks you've got stuff in here. There's some seriously buggy stuff with this. Then you can finally respec out of this and then go back and forth however you want. So a lot of problems there. Let's talk about balancing. Now, I want to, hopefully this is going to be brief. The crafting system I think is adequate. I think it's fine. I would love to interact with it. However, the amount of crafting materials we get is horribly low. Even since they buffed it, I think it sucks. I'm regularly out of Regals, Exalts, and Chaos. I would love to see a big pile of Regals show up. I would love to have a big pile of Exalts. I think I get more Exalts than I get Regals, but Regals are hard to come by. Chaos may as well not exist. I've had 2 or 3 of them. I've tried them here and there. I think the way Chaos works now is it will pick one affix in here and remove it and then replace it, which is different than the way it did in PoE 1 where it rerolled your whole gear. However, in PoE 1, I feel like I had plenty of currency. I feel like I had plenty of options because you had bench crafting, you had all the currency options with additional stuff because we get alterations and scourings and stuff like that. Like, we've lost all of that. Essences would take an item from normal to rare, normal to magic, or normal to rare. Now it just looks like it goes normal to magic. You had plenty of Regals. I never really complained about having Regals. Chaos I would be short on, but I didn't really craft with Chaos all that much. Exalts were extremely rare. But you had a lot of options to craft things with Harvest, Benchcraft, Fossil Crafting. There's so many options. The currency that you had, I can't remember what the ones were called, Orbs of Binding or whatever they were, that would do a 4-link. They would take a normal item, convert it to rare, and 4-link it. So you had a lot of utility out of that one piece of currency. In here, or that one little crafting material, in here, it's bare bones, like super bare bones. And the only way that this would make crafting feel good is to have a large quantity of crafting materials. Forcing or making people feel like they are forced to go into the currency exchange or full-on trade is not a solution. And once you do just go into trade, like if I dropped one of these, what is this? I think Greater Jeweler's Orb or whatever it was. I dropped that and traded it for this stack of Exalts. I happen to be in Trade League. I don't want to do trade. I'm in Trade League because of the currency exchange. That's it. I would otherwise play SSF. I did that in this last league for PoE 1, which worked out great because I wanted to do a whole bunch of different builds. I typically don't use Divines all that much because it's SSF and you get maybe 7 or 8 Divines, maybe a dozen. So it worked out in my favor to trade those off in the currency exchange and get all kind of extra currency of the stuff that I would use, like whatever, all the other stuff that I needed, all the stuff we don't have here, chromes and jewelers and things like that. However, I get over here, I've got 0 currency and I'm still using level 32 gear for my gloves, hat, and boots because I just don't have the currency to tinker with it and make changes. I've had a small amount of Regals, a very small amount. I've had a very dismal amount of Chaos, and Chaos is how you would change all this. Like, I would envision the way you want the crafting to flow is you're going to start with a normal item, transmute it, then throw an augment on it, probably maybe do, you're going to do a Regal. Maybe you want to do some Chaos here and there at certain levels and then throw some Exalts in, maybe do some more Chaos. Like, you're probably going to bounce back and forth. What I do is I take a normal item, I make it magic, I throw an augment on it, I Regal it, and then I add Exalts to it. That's it. That's the limit of the currency that I have to do anything with. So the crafting in this feels miserable. You just don't get to interact with it at all. And I'm stuck with this crappy gear that's from way back when because I just don't have enough materials. So my feedback on the crafting system is that it's fine. You just don't get nearly enough to actually interact with it and make it useful. So it may as well not even exist. It's in my interest to go gamble more than it is to try stuff with currency. I'm tinkering more with this reforging bench, but I don't know. The crafting experience in this is miserable because you just don't have enough currency to do anything. And I don't know how this would affect Trade League. I don't honestly care. But in my mind, if you had, say, 10 divines and you were buying an item that cost 1 divine, it's the same ratio as having 100 divines, but the item costing 10. So in my mind, I want more currency, and who cares? Because it's going to be the same ratio. Just give me 1,000% more currency or whatever. Just turn that dial up and drop a lot of currency. That's my thinking. Good, bad, or indifferent. I would also add, for another balancing thing is, and I wasn't exactly sure where the problem is. Is it a problem with melee? Is it with warrior? Is it with the mace? Is it with Sunder? Like, there's multiple places that this could be a problem. I looked at Pox playing Monk on whatever he's got going on, Flicker Strike or something, like whatever he's doing. He's dashing around. The Monk has a dash skill that bounces from one monster to another, and he's just blinking around all over the place. He gets to do that with Monk. Warrior doesn't. Warrior is slow. He was also doing 14,000 DPS. At the time I watched his video, the way I had my Sunder set up, I was doing 15,000 DPS. So I'm looking at this Monk who's blinking around all over the place with 14,000, I'm sorry, damage, DMG. It's not DPS, it's DMG. 14,000 damage on here. I'm looking at his doing 14,000, and I'm looking at my Sunder doing 15,000, and I'm like, dude, why would I want to play Warrior? I can go play something that has somewhat of a movement skill to it. It's faster. It does not take any of the penalties from armor, because you do get armor penalties on here. So it slows you down physically to where you're not moving. The Sunder skill and a lot of the other two-handed mace stuff, or, well, not two-handed, but a lot of this mace stuff takes forever to do anything. So it all feels bad. Everything about Warrior feels bad. So where I started with this was, is it melee? Well, no, because the Monk looks like he's having a great time. He's doing almost the same amount of damage, and he's fast and has good movement speed. So it's probably not that. Well, is it the Warrior class? And then I saw people posting or talking about that they were throwing on crossbows and they were having a good time with Warrior. So it's probably not the class. Then I thought, well, it must be the mace, because these maces are horribly slow. If I take the mace that I used to have, forget the damage on this mace, but if I take the mace that I used to have, this has a 1.22 attacks per second. If I look at this, I go from an attack time of 1.89 to 1.85. I gain 0.4 attack time by having that 1.22 attacks per second. That mace is slow, and this other mace is almost as slow, but it's slightly less slow. But I lose a ton of damage. Like, I almost double my damage by swapping out. So the attack speed is miserable. I don't know if it's in the attack speed for the mace itself. I'm inclined not to believe that, because I just showed you can swap it out, and that attack speed isn't that great of a difference. The way I fixed my build, I had keep closing all this stuff out. I had like a 2.37 or something like that attack speed. The only reason I've got this to 1.89 is I took everything in Blood Rush. I took all three of those attacks or skill speed bumps, increased skill speed there. I took increased attack speed with Mass Hysteria here. I've also got one that I need to take over there. And then I took this whole section of Blurred Motion with everything around it. I took all of that just to get a sub 2-second attack time with this. Nearly 2.5 seconds of attack time with this means that whatever's hitting you is probably going to kill you by the time you've got your shot down. And I was only doing 15,000 Sunder damage. So Pox could fly around with his melee skills and do all the dashing and stuff. I'm stuck slamming the ground for 1,000 more damage at more than twice the attack time. Like, it was like, this sucks. So don't play Warrior? Like, what kind of advertisement is that? Warrior should be fun to play. I don't think I would necessarily mind a 2.5 second wind up if I did 50,000 damage, not 15,000, 50,000. Like, make me do a lot of damage, 3 times the amount of damage. Make it worth it. But if I'm doing about the same damage as a more mobile and faster style, then why would I play this at all? Warrior feels, not necessarily Warrior, maces, since all these skills are tied to maces. I think the problem lies with mace somewhere, and that's where it needs. It's not melee. It's not Warrior. It's mace, or the skills under mace, or something like that. Like, they could balance that out by increasing the attack time of Sunder and stuff like that. And I would also like to see increased length of Sunder. There are times that I'm running around on a map. This is another complaint I have for mapping. If the relic locker is the monster and this is the edge of the screen, I can be over here where I can't see the monster and he's shooting a fireball totally off the screen. There was something that had like a flamethrower that was this big long spike that was hitting me. I couldn't even see him off the screen. I was trying to run away from him, and because the warriors got movement penalties and all that, I couldn't outrun that the flamethrower thing coming at me. And there's so much degen and damage over time. The on-death effects or whatever, I'm used to that from PoE 1. It's the amount of degen and poison and all the crap on the ground. You've got very piss-poor movement speed. You've got very slow wind-ups. You don't do nearly as much damage. Your AoE is not as big. Like, there's just nothing but penalties for playing what I'm playing. I don't know where to fix it, because I don't think it's at the warrior level, and I don't think it's the melee level. I honestly think it's at the mace or skill level on the maces that some of that stuff needs tweaked. But whatever it is, they need to tweak stuff, because this is a very bad experience. The thing that I would close out on is the 1 life per map. I'm 50-50 on it. I don't know that I necessarily hate it. I don't know. I don't like it. I mean, it's not something I'm going to advocate and say, yeah, that was great. Let me only have 1 life ever. But I don't know that I hate it enough that I don't like it. It sucked at first, and once I got through the first several maps and started getting some gear a little better and started being able to survive, I'm not noticing it much. I definitely feel the pressure of it. I don't try to fight certain things. Essence monsters, I don't touch until I've beaten everything else on the map, which means I have to go through this giant map and backtrack to where the essence monster was. It's just not worth it, because if I die, I'm going to lose everything. So I don't want to deal with that. I also am not able to roll maps because of all the complaints I had with not having enough currency. I don't have enough currency to do anything with gear or maps or anything like that. I just don't have enough currency, period. So the 1 life per map isn't bad. It would be a lot better if I was getting a lot more currency and could actually craft stuff like maps and gear and stuff like that. But as it stands now, I'm kind of stuck with magic gear in mapping if I want to try to go up. I don't know. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox for now. Those are the complaints that I have. I will tell you, I stopped playing this because the crashing and the warrior experience is kind of I'm just kind of done with it for the time being. And this is how I do early access games. I'll check it out. Honestly, I really want the rest of the campaign. I'm almost sad that they chose to do the mapping part. Like any other game, I would have applauded them not finishing the campaign and focusing on the mapping, but I'm really invested in the campaign. I want to see how that turns out. And the mapping is kind of whatever for me at this point because of the warrior and all the other experiences that I've had with it. I've gone over and started playing Grim Dawn. The thing with Grim Dawn is I don't think there's a crafting system in it. There's stuff you can apply to your gear, but most of the gear you're going to get drops off the ground. And it's kind of refreshing to constantly be able to pick up. Like, I'm not always getting new gear, but I'm always getting a chance at something. In Path of Exile, whether it's 1 or 2, I feel like I'm more tied to the crafting system than I am the stuff that drops on the ground. So I don't feel like anything I get off the ground is going to be useful, so I either disenchant it, sell it, or try to upgrade it or salvage it or whatever. Whereas in other games like Diablo 2, Grim Dawn, stuff like that, the things you get off the ground are better. And that's why I say the crafting system in this sucks. It's not because the crafting system's bad, it's because you're just so currency starved you can't do anything. So I also have the ability to play a warrior with decent movement speed. So if the solution is to just go play another game, well, I'll go play PoE 1 or Grim Dawn. That doesn't solve the problems that PoE 2 has as far as warrior and stuff like that. So it's coming from a good place. Like, I'm not sitting here complaining because I want to see it made worse, and I really don't want to be told that, oh, go play another game or play a different class. There's problems with this one, stuff that needs addressed, and there are definitely crashing problems and other things that could be fixed with this game. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.